Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. For those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands with comprehensive, hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Today, I'm really excited. We have Tosh Dutt on the show. He's a serial entrepreneur and energy innovator building high growth companies at the intersection of CleanTech, mobility, and fintech. He's actually founded a few different companies. For instance, ChargeNet Solutions was a software platform that turns fast food parking lots into EV charging profit centers, and Electroflow Finance, which makes EV charging more affordable and accessible through network agnostic subscription models. But today, we're not even going to talk about that necessarily, because Tosh is taking his sustainability experience into a brand new direction to save lives and save billions of dollars in property. Tosh, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jules, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so happy to have you on the show. We could go in so many different directions because you're such a creative individual who's just really pushing the boundaries forward in sustainability. So, I know that you've founded a number of different companies, but today I wanted to talk to you about the one in reaction to the major California wildfires. Why don't you walk us through that company? Is it Emberfree.us?
Yeah, Emberfree Wildfire Defense Systems is first and foremost, we're a general contractor, so we're licensed with the CSLB in California to do construction on residential properties. So we are one of 3 certified general contractors that is approved to apply, sell, and install wildfire defense systems that use a innovative fire retardant called CitroTech. And CitroTech is the only UL Green Guard Gold, EPA Safer Choice, and ASTM certified fire retardant in the market. And what makes it unique is it's food grade, which means that you or I or our pets or wildlife can ingest it, and nothing's going to happen. It's non-toxic, 100% zero VOC, and definitely is a game changer in the firefighting space.
So yeah, it's a product that actually can prevent your home and your property from burning up during these massive wildfires. What was it that made you become interested in this type of thing?
It was first and foremost, I always think of solutions to big problems. When I was doing EV charging, one of the biggest issues that I noticed as an EV owner was that charging stations weren't in a convenient location, and the time it took for me to charge wherever they were didn't line up with whatever, service was there. I'm not going to spend half an hour at a grocery store or an hour, right? And so with my background in clean energy development, I started ChargeNet, which builds public fast charging stations in fast food parking lots specifically, and is built a number of them with many different franchisees and has a long development pipeline. That said, with the wildfires that have not only happened in California, but in North Carolina, in New Jersey, Long Island, this is an endemic situation that we're experiencing. Our environment is changing, and whether, and it's apolitical. So, if you are a homeowner, regardless of which party you're affiliated with, you want to protect your home. And fire doesn't care.
Yeah.
Wildfire doesn't care.
Yeah.
Having had friends and some extended family that have been affected by the wildfires, I wanted to. There has to be something out there that works, and has to be something out there that can prevent it. And and this sounds really almost ridiculous, but I saw this video on my YouTube feed of the founder of CitroTech, or the creator of CitroTech, the founder of Mighty Firebreaker, who's the manufacturer of CitroTech, doing a burn test with his fire retardant, which is called MFB 31. And I was so skeptical. I saw it with my own eyes, but I was so skeptical that I had to know more. And then there was some more videos as I dug into the rabbit hole with fire retired fire chief in San Diego
Mm-hmm.
that actually vouched for this and was a big skeptic and did several tests himself. And so, out of curiosity, I reached out to the founder of Mighty Firebreaker and
Mm-hmm.
said, "Listen, I really am interested in this. I need to know more." He invited me to breakfast. Steve Conboy, who's the founder and creator of CitroTech, is a very exciting person to be around, and he's very passionate about what they're able to achieve with CitroTech. I spoke with Jeff Bowman, who's the retired fire chief, that is sort of the evangelist for CitroTech, and I was bought in and wanted to find some way to work with them to help homeowners protect their properties.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're in San Diego, right?
Yes.
And you have family up in LA.
Yes.
So, I mean, just these last few years, I'm not even going to say just this last one, because San Diego and LA have been prone to these massive fires. And this is not just like, the crowded places. This is, you were saying this is apolitical, but I feel like it's also agnostic of class as well, of how much money you have. It doesn't matter if you're renting or you're buying, or, this affected absolutely everybody. Even the absolute nicest homes up in like Malibu and the Pacific Palisades were endangered and destroyed because of some of these latest wildfires.
Yeah, and part of that has to do with the inability to take care of such large swaths of land. The cities and counties can only cover so much territory. That said, and there's plenty of blame to go around for everyone, but there's also the building materials that we've used historically are highly combustible. A lot of synthetic materials that might have some fireproofing that will last an hour or 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
but once you get past that, it's not going to survive. And so the devastation and the leveling of these homes that we saw are part of that. And what CitroTech and what we at Emberfree are able to do is install these wildfire defense systems that consist of almost 300-gallon tank tote, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that's attached to a pump that we attach to a sprinkler system that we strategically place around typically underneath the roof line, underneath the eaves, or on the roof, but also in other areas of the home where the homeowner can remotely deploy the fire retardant if there is a wildfire that is that's coming nearby, or a threat to their home. It's its own cell signal, and we were able to power it off grid. So if the utility shuts off power to the house and there's no backup power,
Mm-hmm.
they'll still be able to deploy the system and basically coat their house. We also, that's sort of the main solution that we provide, but we also do services as well, very much like pest control or other services. We'll come out and we'll treat high risk areas of the home with
Mm-hmm.
CitroTech. And what's really neat about CitroTech is, aside from it being non-toxic and safe for consumption, although not not recommended. I wouldn't drink a bottle just because.
Yeah.
But it also will stay on semi-permanently, unless rain comes and washes it off.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't need to be treated again. So when we treat people's attics or their basements or underneath their decks,
Mm-hmm.
it pretty much stays on. So we're able to provide the most different levels of coverage based on what the homeowner's needs are, what makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to put in a full system. Sometimes doing the treatments will work.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also sort of the ultimate level of coverage where we do both. We install the system in to protect the structures and create a fire line around the home property. And then we'll also come periodically treat specific areas of the home that could be susceptible to combustion.
So it sounds like you've actually solved a number of problems. The biggest of which is, you've got this preventative maintenance where you spray the property beforehand. You also have actual tanks on the property so that if the fire is coming, all that has to happen is that the sprinklers are able to put this fire retardant all over the property, all over the actual house and the foliage outside so that that doesn't burn. But then it sounds like the additional step that's been taken is that this is actually safe.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is, we all have pets, we have animals, I love horses, we're kind of a horse family, and looking at the barns that we're at, I mean, they're all made of highly combustible wood products or, wood. And the last thing you want is one, horses to get sick from licking the walls or, being around, some toxic fire retardant. And two, to be able to protect them, in the case of a fire where, they're not going to get injured or hurt. That the the coverage, it's almost like there's a lot of risk mitigation that's been built into the product. And then when you look at the solution and the network effect that it can have, if a homeowner installs this in their home, it's not just going to protect their home. It's also going to protect their neighbors' homes too as well.
Mm-hmm,
And if
mm-hmm.
you have multiple neighbors, you have like a group of homes that are up against a canyon, and that canyon is not being taken care of. It's sort of common property, public property that isn't going to get addressed. You'll be able to protect the whole block. I mean,
Yeah.
you're essentially creating a fire line that's not going to, where embers aren't going to jump over, that sort of wall of defense that's been created where you have multiple homes that have systems.
Yeah.
And now you're protecting the entire community. And
Mhm.
so when you look at we have lots of HOM that, have landscaped, a lot of communities and properties and maintain them. And this also is there to protect the HOAs, common spaces too as well in their investment. Just by them being able to spray the canyon, say that canyon was in a HOA, they're mitigating the risk of fire even getting into the canyon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the big thing is embers. We want to be ember free. And so that's essentially what we're trying to achieve with what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that concept of herd immunity, except for fires, rather than sickness. And so, basically, if a critical mass of people were able to adopt this technology and fireproof their homes, we wouldn't see that mass spread contagion of wildfires from home to home.
Yeah, it's a network effect, and it's a force multiplier. And when you look at fires, especially wildfires, those are force multipliers.
Mm-hmm.
Those embers that get generated, they spread to different places, and so you'll have, fire in one part, and then it'll all of a sudden spreads to another part. We've seen it happen a lot. So when you can create this wall of defense, you're able to force multiply the defense of people's properties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic concept. So let's switch directions and talk about how are you bringing this concept to the people. If you had a magic wand and you were able to wave that magic wand and solve one problem that was, that your business is facing, like, let's talk about the actual marketing and growth of your company. If you wanted to 10x your company, what's the one thing that you would do?
I think for us right now, it's getting people our free wildfire risk assessment and being able to show them, hey, these are the risks that, listen, we obviously want people to, get our systems and protect their homes. But first and foremost, we want them to know what the risks are, right? Mm-hmm. And so, if I had a magic wand, I would love to have as many homeowners as possible come do our wildfire risk assessments and come out to their properties and look at what the risks are. And so that's I think the easiest way for us to sort of 10x and multiply our growth. Mm-hmm. And it's completely free. Typically, if you want a fire inspection, getting a fire inspector out first, you're gonna have to wait a month at least, and second, you're gonna have to pay about $500 to get that report. Where sort of the glaring risks, we're able to outline, the next day or the same day. Mm-hmm. And if it makes sense, homeowner does want to proceed with looking at mitigating that risk and protecting their home from wildfires will provide for one of the many services that we provide, whether it's periodic, treatment or installing a wildfire defense system or some combination of both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that once people actually get that fire risk assessment, they might be surprised at how much risk they have?
Yeah, a lot of people don't really sort of think of the little details. I was at a homeowner's property yesterday, and on the other side of their fence in the HOA's property was a endangered tree that has pine cones. Pine cones are little fire bombs, and so if there was something to happen, those embers would very easily come onto his property. And another thing too is, there was a wood pergola structure that they had, and also trim that lines underneath their roof. Their eaves were made of wood, even though that their roof was concrete tile.
Mm.
And so, like, those are the little things people don't really think of when they think of, like, they think of, like, oh, there's this big, dry bush on my property, and that's gonna, that's gonna buzz, and that's definitely a big risk, as well. But there are these other little ones where you have to look sort of beyond just the property and look at the details of the materials of the structure that the home was built with, and be able to know what's gonna combust, or like fire attic vents too as well. That's another big one. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why we treat the attics too as well. And sometimes we'll even put a system in the attic if it's a larger system. Mm-hmm. But replacing those attic vents, that's another measure that we're able to perform as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if you want to learn more about Emberfree, just go ahead and check out right below here. We're going to have a bunch of links to where you can find out more about Tosh. You can find out more about the company itself. And Tosh, it's really been fantastic having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for your insight. And it sounds like you're out there potentially literally reshaping the landscape and protecting it from fires.
We hope so. We want to do as much as we can in the shortest amount of time. I mean, we're running up right against wildfire season, so now's the time to look at protecting your home. So
yeah. Again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, Jules.
Yeah, for sure.